and welcome to this edition of the Boob Tube Buddies podcast, featuring our discussion of the Cinemax original series, Outcast, episode 101, entitled A Darkness Surrounds It. I'm Adam Foxman, this is Mathis.
What up?
You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit. We'd love to field any questions, comments, and concerns, and please rate us on iTunes. This is the number one way that you can support our show, and we'd really appreciate it. What's going on, Mothman?
What's going on, Foxman? Why can't we just be Foxman and Mothman? What's with these formalities, you know?
Yeah, we could do that. I don't really care. Honestly, it's bizarre when people call me Adam.
Yeah, I think it's bizarre, too, when you introduce yourself that way.
And don't you feel weirded out when people call you anything but Mothman?
No, truthfully, I don't.
Does anybody call you Mothman for me?
It's strictly you. But, you know, everyone has different terms of endearment, you know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
So, I'm pretty excited because we're about to embark on a new show. We haven't done that in like 3 weeks.
And you know what? First things first, if you are listening to this and you have not watched the show, and let's say you don't even have Cinemax, easy fix right here. You can go onto YouTube and watch the first episode of the show for free up on YouTube. So if you're listening and have not watched it, pause this, go back, watch that on YouTube, and then come back and check with us. It is a very scary show, so going to give you a heads up on that. But incredibly well done. Great acting so far in episode 1. Great cinematography. Beautiful sets and locations. Mm-hmm. But okay, so go ahead, break us into our little advertisement.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, we will have links to some material from Amazon in the description. Most notably, we're going to be linking to the first few volumes of the comics that this show is based on. So a little background of the show. This is from Robert Kirkman. Robert Kirkman is the creator of Walking Dead. It became the hit TV show, and because it was a hit and he was kind of a big deal, he found himself in a weird predicament where this comic that hadn't even really been fully written or released was already being offered a position by Cinemax as a TV show. So he actually developed the show and the comic kind of side by side, the whole process. So it'll be interesting to see how much they vary, if at all, for the most part, as he was basically developing them together.
And you'll be able to speak to that from experience because you've actually read a decent amount of the comics, right?
Yes, yeah, I've read what I imagine would go past this first season, but it's hard to say. And I will say from the first episode, from what I remember from the initial comic, so far, it's definitely playing it on the straight and narrow. And I'll share one real kind of sad story, you know, just to kick things off before we actually get into ads. But
that's a great way to bring the energy up. What you got?
I think so. So I'm a huge comic fan, and for many, many years of my life, I would go into the comic store every Wednesday, or at least a few Wednesdays a month, to get new books. And I particularly like to try new stuff and indie books. And there was a comic called Walking Dead. Week it came out, I liked zombies. I bought it, and by the time it got to issue, I don't know, like 50 or 75, I'm trying to remember around what number it was, they had released these big oversized hardcovers, which I don't have anywhere to store comics other than boxes. I like to display stuff, so I was like, man, I'd like to buy these oversized hardcovers instead. I can just sell my Walking Dead issues. And it was a popular book at the time, so I think I made $500 selling these issues that I spent maybe $150 on. So I was feeling pretty good.
Nicely done.
Right? Literally the next day they announced the Walking Dead TV show, and that first issue alone that I sold and the conditions in is a $1,000 book.
No.
Right? And the only kind of reprieve I have is the fact that I sold it to someone who I still know and am in contact with. He has it graded, so like he knows the exact condition, so it really is like a $1,200 book now. But he has not sold it. It's just in his collection, so it's not like it went to someone who didn't care and immediately just made a dime off it. So anyway, that's my sad story.
God damn, dude, I feel sick to my stomach. I don't know if I can do this episode now.
Well, I'm just setting the tone because this is a kind of disturbing show. But so yeah, buy stuff from those links. We also, if we've referenced certain TV shows or movies that this reminds us of, we'll link to that as well. And then also, this episode of Boob Tube Buddies is proudly brought to you by Audible.com. So if you go to audibletrial.com/boobtubebuddies, sign up for a 30-day trial, you will get a free audiobook. That's right, I said free, and you will love it. Audible's a fantastic service. You can cancel at any time. If you use it for 6 months and you just get behind and backlog on your books, just cancel the account, and a few months later when you're caught up, re-log in, re-pony up, and you get more content. So it's a really cool service. They even have a feature called Whisper Sync, which is kind of cool, which if you own the book on Kindle and on Audible, it does a really good job of remembering your place. So obviously you can't tell exactly what sentence you're reading, but it's within the paragraph. So if you stop on a page reading it night in bed, and then you're in the car in the morning, it'll actually start off on that same page on your Audible book. So it's a pretty cool feature.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah, I actually.
What a time to be alive.
I know. I had that happen once because I got Audible, got that book. I can't remember which book it was, but I happened to just have it in Kindle and just had been behind on it forever. But it definitely came in handy. So on that token, let's get to the content. So you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so cue the intro, which is so fucking creepy.
Yes, it is. You get this kid staring intently, at first not sure of what, and then that is, cut to a very close-up of a roach. Roaches aren't as disgusting when they're real close up.
No, it's actually kind of cute.
Yeah, a little adorable.
Yeah, so it's walking up the wall, and the kid just sitting on a chair, facing it, looking at it intently, like basically completely mesmerized by it. And all of a sudden, the little boy starts kind of scratching himself frantically.
On the arm, yeah.
Yeah, and then out of nowhere, just BAM! Smashes his head against the wall, and the roach just explodes with blood. Like, probably way more blood than should have come from the
So much blood. I mean, it's just insane how much blood is everywhere. It's very creepy. And then the kid basically starts almost making out with the wall, just like rubbing his face in all this excess blood, until he slides his face up and just, eats that roach.
Yeah.
A little gross, right? The cute roach actually reminded me of Joe's Apartment. Did you ever see that? That was like the first MTV
Yes, I did,
movie.
with Jerry McConnell?
Yeah.
Jerry O'Connell?
Yeah, some forgotten name. And
who was also in Stand By Me? Little throwback to...
Was he in Stand By Me?
I think he's the chubby kid in Stand By Me.
Wow, he got handsome and then fell off the face of the earth.
Is that true? I'm pretty sure he's the chubby kid in that.
I have no idea. Our viewers can tweet us if we're wrong, right?
Yeah.
But the roaches were stop motion and danced, and they were cute. But anyway, he now proceeds to go downstairs, and he is just covered in blood, basically, because that roach was just a fucking fountain.
It's streaked across his forehead, yeah. So he goes down, and there are some people arguing downstairs, two female voices, and he pays it really no attention. He's just kind of like looking around like he's never seen the place before. Like everything's new to him, just kind of like running his hands across things, just like looking around. And then he goes into the cabinet and he grabs out some Lay's potato chips, starts snacking on them, and then he accidentally bites his finger. And the fighting kind of reaches its peak. Somebody screams, "I fucking hate you," and then the mom walks in, who you later find out that her name is Betsy Austin, and she tells the kid, who you now find out his name is Joshua, to put away the chips. And then he kind of turns around and...
He's just eating the meat off of the bone of his finger.
Yeah.
So he's just taking a nice big bite. Looks kind of like, I don't know, like the chopped up chicken and nachos, with like the cheese coming off. And... But it's a little bit less appetizing, and his mom has the same opinion because she yells.
Oh, yeah, she screams. And honestly, at this point, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, what the fuck did you get me into, Mathis? Like,
right.
Sitting there watching it by myself at like 12:30 at night one night, and just like on the edge of my seat, so fucking scared, pulling the blanket up over my face. Like, really, really creepy.
Well, luckily they dial it down, and now we are just seeing three guys playing poker. One's a sheriff, one's a firefighter, one's a preacher. They all walk into a bar and right?
Yeah. Nicely done. That's basically the punchline. And can I say the sheriff is from The Wire. He's a reporter at the Baltimore Sun. He's also in House of Cards, where he plays
Frank, the barbecue chef.
Yeah, what's his name? Like Benny or something like that. That doesn't seem.
I always
right.
think it's Franklin.
I don't think it's Franklin.
But I think
either.
it's actually Freddy.
It's definitely Freddy.
And Franklin is a famous BBQ place in Austin, but Freddy is the name of this famous BBQ place in DC.
Yeah, I actually knew the Franklin thing because Aziz Ansari goes there in his show Master of None.
Oh yeah, I was gonna go there when I was in Austin, but then I didn't want to spend 6 hours there, so I went and waited for an hour at a food truck called La Barbecue. That was the best barbecue I've ever had.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, you would recognize him from a couple of different things. I did not recognize the preacher guy.
Yeah, the Reverend, me neither.
The Reverend, yeah, but he looks like he's going to be a pretty main part of the show moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. So they're all playing poker. They're having a good time. They're essentially all just getting the the Reverend to call his bluff. And at that point, a lady named Florence comes in. I can only assume it's an alternate dimension of Flo from Stranger Things.
For sure.
Right? So maybe not from like the upside down, but from like the in between or something.
And, yeah. She's the flea.
Yeah. And so she's like Miss Austin or Betsy Austin. I don't know if she says the full name.
She says Mrs.
Mrs. Austin. So then it's him meeting her at the church, and she's a little disturbed.
Yeah, well, first off, he walks out of this room after the other guys leave, and there's like tons of alcohol on the table, and so he walks out, and only at this point do you really realize that he's a preacher, because he's not dressed in like any sort of typical clothes.
Yeah, I don't think you actually know until he gets there, but I couldn't remember.
Is there a difference between this is probably a stupid question, everybody listening probably already knows, but is there a difference between a reverend and a preacher?
So I'm not going to answer that. Instead, I'm going to read you a note of mine. The pastor, comma, preacher, comma, reverend, comma, holy man, comma, shaman, comma, rabbi is talking to the kid's mom.
Are you pausing the show while you're writing your notes so that you can put in extra adjectives? Because if you read my notes, it looks like Diaries of a Madman and
a lot
terrible
of I do,
spelling.
But I wrote those all in because the ongoing joke for me was that I was just going to refer to him as a different holy person because I don't know the differences between most of them. And then the fact that you kind of just brought that to the light, I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, I have no idea, but you should feel bad. You were like brought up pretty heavily in the faith, right?
Non-denominational faith, so I don't know what these dividing lines are.
You know what? Even when we did go to church when I was a kid, we went to a non-denominational church.
Yeah, it's kind of like agnosticism for people that are basically atheists. It's like the safe, easy version.
Yeah, haven't really committed to it.
No, you're not having your knuckles wrapped by nuns, and you're also not like having to stone the gays or anything.
Yeah,
that's what the extreme sects of Christianity want to do.
Okay, let's not blaspheme too much, and let's get back to this. So he talks to Betsy Austin. She says, "It's Joshua. You have to help him. It's just like what you've been talking about on Sunday." And he's like, "Are you sure?" And yeah, she's like completely sure. So now that Reverend has seen this type of possession type thing maybe before. Whatever is happening with Josh is not unfamiliar to him, and obviously he hasn't kept his knowledge of this a secret. He is even doing sermons about it on Sundays.
Yeah, so now we get to see what you find is a dream sequence, and it's a young man looking at a young woman. And I will say the music in this show is from Atticus Ross, who has worked with like Trent Reznor, I think, on the Social Network soundtrack, and he does an amazing job. I particularly love this sound here. It's like a weird, almost like a detuned guitar crossed with a creaking door, yet it's also very melodic. But I don't know if you picked up on any of this, but I love the score.
I didn't pick up on the detuned guitar part. That was a way too specific of a reference. That was like when you're saying "Sick in the Paint." Detuned guitar goes over my head about that. I'd say at about that same level.
Fair enough, but does it like emotionally at least?
Not in like the most uplifting way. It really added to me into the suspense, and I guess it really did a great job of enhancing the feeling that you're supposed to have in each scene. So it did exactly what it was supposed to do. And the awesome part is it's a little bit subtle. Like sometimes you'll like the score will be so heavy-handed that you're really noticing the score overtly, like over and over and over again. This, for me, there was a perfect blend of like ambient sounds mixed with like scratching strings during like swelling, scary moments. And I thought that so far, one episode in, I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it really subtly makes you feel like a speck in a cold and uncaring universe.
Sure. Real quick, before we even go into the flashback, the first shot you get of this scene is it's a house in the country. It looks like it's in a little bit of disrepair, and it goes inside, and it's messy. It is really messy. And there's a poster on the wall. It's an X-Files poster that says, "I want to believe," with the UFO. And then the guy, again, the kid that was from Almost Famous, is lying on the mattress. And this is where he has the flashback of him in a park with a young lady.
Oh, I didn't even realize it. I thought it just showed the place afterwards. But yeah, he has this flashback. It doesn't really reveal much other than you really
Nothing
see
at all.
her face. But then he wakes up to some other woman banging at the door and yelling his name, which is Kyle. And he gets up off the mattress on the floor.
Very slowly gets up.
He has no intent. He's not in much of a hurry. He walks downstairs, and then instead of going to the door that's being banged on, he goes to the kitchen and makes himself some cereal and begins eating it while the banging continues and persists.
And don't forget, when he's on his way to the kitchen, he actually pauses and looks into another room, and there is a mannequin in there with a bridal veil on it, which kind of makes you think possibly, since he just had this little dream about the girl and the other one, maybe she is past, or they're not together anymore or something, and that was her bridal veil. At least that's, to me, where my thought was going at this point. So, he finally gets in there, sits down, has the cereal. She, who has been knocking at the door, is now at the back door, and she's like, "I can see you," and she's still, knocking, yelling his name, and then he just slams the chair back, goes and opens the door. He's so fucking pissed, asks her to leave, and she's not, deterred at all. She says, "Not a chance," and then goes, just barges her way in, looks into the fridge, and she's like, "How long's it been since you had a vegetable? How long's it been since you had a solid poop?"
Yeah, she's just giving him a hard time. Obviously, things are in shambles there, and she even notices that the water isn't even turned on.
Yeah, and he's like, "Are things so dull with your real family that you keep bugging me?" And she's like, "Why are you punishing yourself?" And he's like, "Don't make me your mission. You don't owe me anything. Get out of here." And then she's basically like, "No, I want you to get out of the house, at least for an hour. Let's go do a grocery run." And he agrees to it.
Sure, he agrees to it. I mean, he tells her at one point he appreciates her judgment. But she's very persistent, so they decide to go to the grocery store. But we now see...
Yeah, she walks outside, so he says he needs a minute. Right?
He needs a minute. And now, instead of him sitting at the table eating cereal, it's a young boy eating cereal at the table.
Yeah, flashback.
He turns around, his mom, or presumably his mom, is acting kind of like that kid that likes to eat roaches. And
I wasn't 100% sure that it was a woman at first. Very clearly, by the end of the episode, you know that this is his mother.
Yeah, I mean, I saw would look like kind of like a bob haircut, but when a later scene happens, you're actually not very sure. But she's scratching herself just like the other person as well.
It's really scary. Hair draped down in the face, so you can't really see the face, but she's very gaunt, pale, drawn. And
she just gets right up behind him. Her head is right down next to his shoulder, so she's leaning in,
sniffing him,
and you're like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." And then incredibly, just out of nowhere, grabs him by the hair, yanks him out of the chair. Chair hits the ground.
Strings are swelling. This is the soundtrack at work right here.
And just throws him into the pantry and closes it. And
he's just banging on the door and he just screaming to get out, and she just kind of walks out of the room, and then the reverie's over. He's back and still kind of lost in thought a little bit.
So you assume that's him younger from the flashback.
Yeah, definitely that's him remembering this happening back in the day. And can I just say, this was yet another scene where I was like, God, like, I cannot watch this show by myself. Like, I was seriously so scared watching it. It was so horrifying. And this scene, maybe more than any other scene, for whatever reason, just really got to me. It's like, how could he not face her knowing that she's like that? Like, just leaving your back turned towards her. Like, the way that I'm set up right now recording this, there's like an open room behind me that's dark, and I'm seriously looking over my shoulder, like, so scared.
Yeah, that's a creepy scene, to say the least. So
for sure.
Now we're going to get a little bit more creepy scenes, right? Because the preacher is consoling and talking to, what's the name again? Betsy?
Yeah, Betsy Austin and Joshua Austin. So the Reverend knocks on their door, and he's there to see their son. So he's basically going to perform a freaking exorcism, which was, again, just so goddamn terrifying. And the boy is just snarling and writhing all over the place. He throws holy water on him, which makes him fall back. And then he just, like, the boy just starts floating. Good God.
Yeah, he is levitating in the air. And your shit's getting real, basically. I mean, you don't know, between the first scene and then the scene with, what you assume is his mother, you're not 100%, if you didn't read the description, you're like, is this exorcism? I don't know what's going on, but, I mean, levitation, holy water, crosses, we know it's up now.
Oh yeah, you've seen all this stuff. So, like, the boy's mom is terrified and watching, and she goes to, like, grab the boy, but it kicks both the Reverend and her, and it just, like, I'm pretty sure it breaks her nose.
Yeah, she's
actually
bleeding from the face now.
Yeah,
as if she smashed a roach with her head.
Yeah, just gushing blood. Like, Demogorgon's definitely gonna get this bitch. And then the Reverend has him pinned down. The boy is screaming, and that's really it for that scene. Now we're back at the grocery store with Kyle.
Yeah, and Megan, the girl he's with.
Yes.
I don't remember when we get the name at some point, but
I believe that it was during this scene, actually.
Yeah, but she's complaining about the lack of organic selection, but she does at least find some organic cereal. He obviously
high fiber for his poops.
Yeah. She's like, this. She goes, let poops be solid. The fact that she calls everything poops makes me think she has kids, but I don't know at this point. And
he says something about, like, is your real family this so boring that you have to so yeah, it's kind of already been intimated at.
Yeah, I mean, family doesn't necessarily be kids, right?
Yeah, I know, but when you see like a 30-year-old woman and they're saying your family, I don't know, it just
way to enforce gender stereotypes.
I'm just saying, dude, like, that's just the way. That's just
that's just the way it is.
Yeah, some things that never change. Yeah, it's just like you just assume nuclear family type stuff, right?
Yep. But you know what? Give it 20 years, those assumptions will be gone.
Oh my God!
Down with the patriarchy.
This podcast might not withstand the test of time with my old school dinosauric viewpoints on marriage, which are not exactly like they're seeming right now.
No, I mean, it'll stand the test of time. You'll just be seen as being on the wrong side of it.
God damn you, dude. I hate that you're painting me into the stereotype.
All right. We'll move on. You can disprove your misogyny later, right?
I fucking hate you so much right now.
He really doesn't want to be there. She looks at the phone and says, hey, if I get you this phone, will you use it to call me if you need me and not to call the one person you aren't supposed to call? So you're like, oh, what the fuck's going on there? And, he kind of, I can't remember what he says to push back, but then he eventually says, well, I won't call. It's fine.
Yeah, and then at this point, like, they're kind of walking different directions, and he sees two women who recognize him, and they walk up to him and say hi, and they remembered him from going to church with his mother when he was younger. He doesn't exactly remember him, but he's congenial.
And one of them is Florence, who interrupted the poker game.
Honest to God, did not catch that. Okay, yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. So she says,
like the Reverend's right-hand man, I guess.
Okay, she says that he should attend church. He's like, I'll try, and then that's when they tell him about Joshua. They say the boy that's fallen prey to dark forces. So obviously people in this town, at least some people, believe the darkness that is occurring.
Yeah, and they not only want him to come to church, but they say that Austin boy could use his prayers. And Megan comes up after they leave and says, like, dark forces? What the fuck? Fuck that shit. You know?
Yeah,
she doesn't have any of it.
They're crazy, basically.
Yeah.
And she's like, your mom was sick. That's it.
When non-Florence, the one with the gray hair, talked, did you feel like her voice was a little demonic?
No, I didn't, but now you're freaking me out.
I felt like I heard kind of like that, that underneath it.
Please don't do that again. That was, like, overtly sexual.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say it was scaring you, but that was a good punchline. All right.
No,
move on.
Okay, so anyway, now we're, they end up leaving, and they're driving back to his house, and he asks if she's heard about the boy, and a couple of things come out in this conversation that are of note. It is kind of hinted at that her parents had taken Kyle in as a kid, and they're kind of like adopted siblings. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's the only way it makes sense, because she refers to it as his mom a few times, which if they're sisters, which they are, brother and sister, then that's the only way it makes sense, right?
Yes, and then the other thing that happens here is she bypasses the road to his house, and he catches onto it immediately. And it's very clear that her plan is to take him to her house to at least have dinner that night. And he's like, "Are you kidding me? Like, your husband hates me. You don't want me around your daughter. Like, what are you thinking?" And she's like, "I'll give you clean clothes. Holly loves you. You're coming to dinner. No questions asked."
Yeah, so he doesn't really have a choice in the matter. She even comments that you don't hate the idea as much as you hate the idea of jumping out of the car, a moving car, or something like that.
Yeah.
So he's along for the ride, begrudgingly. And now they're at the house, and Megan's husband, who we don't know his name, but he's a popo. He gets out and he goes in and sees Kyle, and immediately Kyle is just like, "Hey, I know you don't want to be here. Neither do I. She dragged me along. You can talk to her."
Yeah, and you can tell that the deputy guy is not happy at all. He just says, "Nice shirt," super sarcastically, because Kyle's in one of his old shirts.
And isn't this Ron from The Office? Pam's first love?
Roy.
Okay.
Ron. Yeah, it's definitely
one
Roy.
letter off. It's not laugh worthy.
It was really far off. It was borderline embarrassing. But anyway, so yeah, and he looks pretty much the exact same as he did when he played Ronald on the Office too.
Yeah, and then the main character looks just like Jim.
Oh, you mean Jerry? I'm just saying if we're gonna mess up everybody's names.
All right. So he goes in there, and you now know his name is
Holly.
Yeah, and she mentions Uncle Kyle, and he basically sends her upstairs to, not be in the room while he talks to Megan, and is not happy about it. And he immediately talks about not wanting him near his daughter, and they say things like, well, he's not going to hurt her across the dinner table, and it's like he could eat in the other room. So you're like, whoa, what the fuck has happened? To where they're worried about him beating up a little kid,
Yeah, and he says some other things like, I know what he did for you when he was younger, and we can never thank him enough, but yeah, he took a turn when he got older. How can you be okay with him being here after what he did? And even she says something to the effect of what he did was horrible and
unforgivable.
Yeah, unforgivable, but it ruined his life, and now he's not going to hurt anybody. And so the deputy guy basically agrees to, okay, one night, one dinner. And while this is happening, while they're talking about, him jumping across to attack Holly across the dinner table, Holly is just in there now talking to him by herself. Yeah.
And he says, Holly, do you know who I am? She's like, you're Uncle Kyle. You beat your little girl. Now you're not allowed to be her daddy anymore. And he just hangs his head. Immediately
starts crying and walks out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And so Holly goes and tells the parents that Uncle Kyle left, and Megan walks outside, doesn't see him. The husband comes out. He's like, I'm sure he's fine. Do you want him to get a patrol car, pick him up, and drive him home? And she's like, all he wants is to be alone. So
let him walk.
Yeah, fuck him.
Yep. So now we have Kyle sitting out front of his house on a kind of charming little swing bench, despite the fact that everything else is dilapidated. And he makes a call, and you kind of get the feeling that this is the call he's not supposed to make. It's the woman
Yeah,
from the dream.
first off, he got the burner phone because Megan had dropped it off at the house. Like, the scene starts with him waking up on the bed, and there's like a sound of a car engine outside, and then the tires, pulling away, and she's left this burner phone for him.
That's right, yeah, because she immediately took... Did she bring home the groceries too? Because they... Is it all that stuff?
The bag of groceries and the burner phone are outside.
Yeah, so he makes this call. The lady from the dream answers. He doesn't say anything, and she says, Kyle, is that you? Some dramatic music plays.
There's a child swinging in the background that you can see.
Yes, and it's very ominous music. He doesn't answer, and now you basically know the story. He immediately smashes the phone on the bench. It breaks in two, and then he throws the phone so hard at his window it breaks his window.
Yeah, she hangs up the phone and calls a little girl, Amber, who is swinging outside, calls her inside. Now let me ask you about this, because Bethany and I had a discussion on it. She said, "Are you kidding me? Like, you could not throw your phone through a window." And I said, I could definitely throw my phone through a window and it would break it. Not being like cool macho man, I just don't think that would be difficult at all. But she said that was unrealistic. What do you think?
I think it's partially realistic. The phone he has is a flip phone. He broke it in half, so it doesn't have the top. It probably wouldn't weigh enough. Factors that might let it work is the fact that it's older window. Nothing's been taken care of. It's those old style windows. It's not like it's heavy duty UV protected glass or anything. I don't know if it would weigh enough. If you definitely throw like a modern phone, like that, like an iPhone 6 Plus or some of the bigger phones, you could easily break it.
I'm just saying,
he has tons of strength, too.
I'm pretty sick in the paint. I feel like I could definitely throw it through a window.
Yeah, I don't know. He has an uncontrollable rage that makes him punch kids, apparently, so I don't doubt
it. Yeah, maybe you're right. I bet the sheriff from Stranger Things could definitely punch his way through that window.
I did have a note at some point earlier we moved past, but it said... it was when they're talking at the dinner table and they first mentioned beating up a kid. I go, wait, is this guy a serial puncher like Jim Hopper?
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so he now goes to a next door neighbor who, did you catch the name? I put Rowdy, but that probably isn't right.
At the very least, I don't have it marked down for this part. Maybe when we get to it later, I'll see it, but I don't recall. I know that he mentions his wife's name at some point, which I've written down later.
Oh, but anyway, he says, am I still good to borrow your car? So there's obviously been an offer there. And he drives it over to the Austin's house. So this is not I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, no, I was not expecting this either. So yeah, he ends up getting there, and I actually didn't recognize the house when he first pulled back up, which I guess I should have, because you've seen at the very least the front entrance when the Reverend initially showed up there, right? Mm-hmm. So he gets there. She does not recognize him, but he says, I heard about your boy. Is the Reverend here? And so she says, let me go get him. So they talk for a second. The Reverend obviously recognized him from when he was a kid, and he's a little surprised to see him here. They shake hands. A couple of things come out here that are interesting. Kyle says he's been back about 5 months, so we know that...
yeah, he says, Kyle Barnes, you're back in town? And he's like, well, yeah. And then 5 months.
So we know that he was out, he hasn't been here at least for that long. He probably grew up here, moved away, just came back 5 months ago. So the Reverend brings him in. Kyle, immediately is obviously feeling some doubt. He's like, I'm not even sure really why I came.
I didn't come to help.
Yeah, and Reverend's like, well, we know what this is. And Kyle is doubtful. Which is bizarre, because after what he saw, you think that he would be the ultimate believer in this thing. Yeah,
you would, but I mean, the Reverend reiterates that you saved your mother, which he obviously doesn't necessarily believe, and you're not exactly sure what transpired there.
Yeah, because he says, my mom was just sick, I was just a kid, and maybe he doesn't want to let his mom off the hook for her behavior or something. Maybe that's why he refuses to believe in the whole demonic possession thing.
Sure. So, at this point, though, that discussion is tabled because they're going to go on in and see Joshua Austin.
Yeah, the last thing he says right there in that is, let's not start blaming the boogeyman again.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, so the Reverend, he opens the door to Josh's room, and Kyle enters, and he sees the child, Josh, huddled on the bed, facing the other direction, I think, scratching his neck. All of a sudden, the boy stops scratching, slowly turns his head around to look at Kyle. Kyle does not seem scared at this point, and the thing says, "I know you." So then Kyle says, "You think so? When's the last time you went to school, Joshua? Pretty cool to skip school." Like, he really thinks that this kid is not... Like, he thinks he's faking it, basically. And then,
he's been going to church and been hearing the Reverend talk about this type of stuff, right?
Yeah, so there would be, at the very least, the window of opportunity for this. Like, he would already have the motivation of not wanting to go to school, possibly. He would already kind of know that this would be a get out of school free card, the ultimate one in this town, apparently.
Mm-hmm. And who wouldn't eat the flesh off their finger for that?
Yeah, I don't think Kyle is really privy to the depths that this thing is sunk to. Like, he probably doesn't know about the finger chewing scene.
Do you think Reverend does, though? Because he's the one. Isn't he the one that says you have to go back to school, or no? Kyle does.
No, Kyle says that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Reverend's fully... He does not think this is a conspiracy, or he doesn't think the kid's faking it at all. Kyle clearly is thinking that at this point. And then
scene,
Josh kind of snaps out of it a little bit, and he's like... It actually seems like real Josh. And he's like, I miss my friends. He's looking way less sinister. And then Kyle says, "You're wasting everybody's time, kid." And then Reverend's like, "Well, this is new. He's not normally like this." And then all of a sudden it switches back, and it's like, "You're all grown up. You probably couldn't fit in the pantry anymore. You used to draw on the walls. I know you, Kyle Barnes." And then now Kyle is like hairs on the back of his neck standing up, I'm sure. That's how I was feeling. He's freaking out. The boy starts scratching again. The thing is obviously returned back to the forefront. And Kyle's like, "You don't have any idea what you're talking about. You're just a damn kid. You don't know shit." And he gets in his face and starts yelling at him. Yeah,
and at this point, the Reverend, he just thinks, cooler tempers could prevail, so he lights a giant spliff.
Yeah, which is actually just sage for any viewers who are not recalling the scene correctly.
Yeah, he has a giant thing of sage.
And then he starts playing Bob Marley, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bob Marley, for just don't worry, be happy.
Yeah, that's not Bob Marley, that's Bobby McFerrin.
Oh, God, wrong Bobbies.
so embarrassing.
Roy, Ron, I'm over it, man.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
I got callous skin everywhere after podcasting with you for 22 hours.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. So after Reverend starts burning one down, the thing looks at Kyle again. He's like, "Too long you've hidden your life from us, Outcast." And then it just leaps onto him and starts, I guess, draining his fucking soul through his mouth while he... What did you think was happening there?
Not 100% sure, but yeah, it seems like he is trying to suck something out of him. There's some kind of, I don't know...
Jesus Christ,
connection.
Mathis. I'm gonna do a soundbite of you just saying that part and make it my ringtone for when you call.
Fair enough. I mean, you'll just think I'm doing an educational video for if you get bit by a snake.
Oh, yeah, sucking something out of him.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah. Anyway, so you're not sure what, the mythology or anything behind it, but it's pretty intense. And, that's kind of where it leaves off, right? I mean, he knocks him off of him. The Reverend helps with that, and he goes flying into a wall and is knocked out. Yeah, well, before he throws him off, he actually has a quick flashback of his mom doing the exact same thing to him when he was a child. Oh, yeah. The moment he's on top, it cuts.
It's like a cut of the exact same thing happening when he was a child, but with his mom replacing Josh in this part. So, and then you're right. The Reverend throws him off. The kid now is just looking hungry on the bed, and Kyle walks outside. The Reverend's in tow. Immediately, the Reverend lights up a cigarette. His hands are shaking like he's Michael fucking J. Fox. And Kyle asks, like, had he done that to you? And the Reverend says, no. The demons are tricksters. They want you to be more scared of them than you need to be.
But God is on our side.
Yeah, and he kind of like talks about his mission. He's like, they're out there, all over the place, in every town, and I go into those houses. And then Kyle's like, don't do that. Why would you do that? And the Reverend basically states that like he saw the devil for the first time at Kyle's house way back in the day. It's no coincidence that you set me on this path, and now you're here again. And I don't believe you're going to run either.
Yeah, so the mission, the credo of this series is kind of laid out, it seems. And now we have Reverend going back to church. And the handyman is, tightening up a railing.
I wrote down his name. Doesn't matter, but his name's Caleb.
Okay, Caleb the handyman is tightening a railing. And he mentioned something about painting to the Reverend. And the Reverend's like, well, better ways to spend our money.
We could do it next year.
You think? He's like, let me show you. To which it shows these kids, like, I don't know what you call that, when they're blowing their tongue and have their fingers in their ears and are making faces.
No, they're just being little hooligans.
Yeah, dumb little hooligans. And they
little mouth breathers.
Yeah, and it says Satan lives, and it's got a painting of the devil on there.
Yeah, the kids are making, like, devil horns at him and stuff,
And, the Reverend isn't pleased, but ultimately he's like, you know what, just leave it.
Kind of a funny little part where he's, like saying turn the other cheek, and he looks over, and one of the kids who's skating or on his bike or something, I think he's on his bike actually, he falls off of his bike, and the Reverend kind of like chuckles a little bit. It was kind of funny because I actually chuckled a little bit too when he fell off, but then it cuts to the Reverend and he's chuckling, which actually made it even funnier. So I thought that was just a well done little scene. But it's a short one because immediately after that we get Kyle pulling up to it's either like a retirement home or like a mental health ward. Either way, it's some sort of assisted living for sure. And he walks in to see a catatonic patient. You realize very quickly that it's his mother because, first a nurse comes in and says visiting hours are over. He's like, I'm just leaving. But then he flashes back to a woman beating him in the pantry. It's his mom beating him in the pantry and putting him in there. And he gets hurt somehow, like his mouth is cut. Something happens. And it actually hurts his mom, like the demon within his mom. It seems like recoils back from whatever happens during that.
Yeah, so that might give us a little foreshadowing for later. But
certainly it does.
But then he's back to Rowdy. Did you have a different name at this point? Where he's giving his car keys back and saying, sorry, I had it for the whole day.
I have no other name. I started looking through him Indigo. I know that his wife's name is Elise because after this guy invites him in for stew and he says, yeah, okay, sounds good. The guy says, Elise, she died a year ago this week. We were married longer than we weren't. Alone just doesn't feel right. And then kind of talks about, how wonderful their marriage was for all those years. And I looked through, I do not have his name written down. Although, actually, I did copy the names of everybody's characters. And his is Chief Giles. Nope, I don't have him written down.
Okay. So,
swing and a miss.
Correct me if you picked up on the exact verbiage, but I thought he was making it sound like he heard some of these episodes that were going on between his mom and something, and he just never acted. He didn't know what was going on, and he feels guilty and says, like, look, if you ever see the light on, you come on by any time, and you let me know whatever you need.
Absolutely, yeah, he definitely says that. Well, first, before he gets into that, Kyle's like, yeah, Allison was great. I started out just wanting to look at her, then he kind of smiles a little bit, and then he's like, and then all I wanted to do was listen to her. She's the only person who ever truly knew me. And then the guy says, sorry for your loss, and he's like, Kyle's like, she didn't die, it just didn't work. But then the guy, that's when he says, Elise would want me to tell you how sorry we were. We knew what was happening, but we didn't understand the extent of it. We found you hiding under the porch here enough, didn't realize how bad it was, and it haunted us both. Thought it was just, maybe some discipline being doled out. And then he's like, anytime you see a light on, you're welcome to come by. I'm here for you, whatever you need.
Yeah. So, I don't know if this character will be a big character or
It's
not,
a sympathetic character,
yeah.
which it doesn't seem like Kyle has curried favor with many people at this point, aside from Megan, and then I guess maybe he and the Reverend now share a common bond, too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we have Reverend and Kyle in the car talking, and, he's kind of pressing Kyle on why he's been here 5 months and not really come out of his house or talk to anyone.
Yeah, and just a couple little tidbits. I don't even know if they'll end up amounting to anything, but the Reverend has a picture of a child, and Kyle asks who it is, and Reverend says, it's my son Matthew. And then he kind of like pushes the picture like hidden away from Kyle, like he doesn't want him seeing the picture of his kid, maybe because he knows that Kyle whoops up on some kid asses. I don't know. Then he says something like, what if you're punishing yourself for no reason? Like, you think you caused what happened with your mother. And then he asks him why he even came back. And then Kyle doesn't really have an answer. I mean, he says, like, maybe I just missed the house. But he kind of says it sarcastically.
Sure. So now we see that the kid is now an accomplished contortionist. And
Jesus Christ. Dude, I don't like this part either. Like, it's so creepy.
Yeah, I mean, he's just doing some circus act. He's contorting his body. And Kyle and Reverend, they meet up for round 2, right? And Kyle immediately is like, hey, you don't like the light. My mother didn't either. And he opens up the curtain, to which the...
Before he does, the thing says, "You're brave to return."
Yeah, you're good at that voice. You and your accents, man. And the kid rolls off the bed and hides from the light and basically hisses like a vampire. Yeah.
Yep.
And the Reverend essentially like, hey, what else did you do with your mother?
Yeah,
like,
think
what else
back.
Worked?
What else happened?
He's like, well, I hit her. I mean, she let me have it for the last time. She did it so many other times before, and I finally just snapped and started hitting her back. And Reverend doesn't seem to be super into that idea, right?
Yeah. Well, because he's kind of trying to work it out. He's like, it seemed to hurt her more this time than it should have, and so they try dragging Josh into the light. It just kicks them. They go flying into the wall. It immediately leaps on Kyle, headbutts him really hard in the face.
Wrestling time.
And then starts choking him and removing his soul again. And then all of a sudden, he just punches the little thing in the face and then jumps on it. And then instead of like getting to land some more punches, the thing goes into full-on fucking levitation mode again, except for with now Kyle's riding it like a magic carpet. Like, yeah. Super scary. And how is he going to deal with this, Mathis?
Well, the kid bites into his hand. And
no, it's Sheriff Hopper style. He punches him in the face again.
Oh, I mean, yeah, he continually punches the kid in the face.
Yeah, well, that's when they fly back to the ground because he just punches the kid in the face again. And his mouth is bleeding. I mean, like, this kid is getting, like, Mike Tyson punched out at this point.
So he hits the ground. He goes for another punch. The kid bites at this point, but then immediately hisses and kind of backs away. So then Kyle's like, oh, well, let me pin this bitch down and squeeze my blood into his mouth. That should do the trick, right?
Yeah, so he squeezes like this little thing on either his hand or his wrist or whatever, and it starts squirting blood into the thing's mouth, and it just recoils, like coughing, screaming. It's just like the blood clearly is burning in its throat.
And then just goes, the Great March cannot be stopped.
Yeah, it writhes away from him, and that's what it says, is the Great Merge cannot be stopped. And then it just vomits like this black tar shit all over the ceiling. And the way it's happening is like, because it's projectile, but it's also almost like gravity has like reversed and is bringing this stuff up towards the ceiling. So it's all just pooling up on the ceiling above them. They're all looking up as it's happening. And then it starts...
me a lot of when Johnny Depp gets killed in Nightmare on Elm Street, and then just all the blood shoots out of the bed and just covers the ceiling.
I don't recall that, but it sounds like something I don't want to recall, like something I repressed.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty terrifying.
So then this stuff starts forming into some weird, shapeless, I don't even know how you describe it. Basically, like it's just forming into something, and then it just explodes outwards, like towards everybody else, and then just kind of dissipates and goes away. And at this point, the mom walks in to see Kyle sitting next to the bloody boy Josh, and I'm like, I'm thinking like, God damn it, like if if you're Kyle, you got to think right now, like, oh my god, this can't look good.
Yeah, this can't look good at all. I took the black as it hit the ceiling. It didn't seem like it was almost coming at Kyle because it's like coming.
Oh,
towards
100%, yeah.
But then it dissipates because maybe it realizes it can't really take on Kyle due to whatever powers it has. But at this point, level 1's cleared, mission accomplished. But yeah, it doesn't look very good. So now Kyle's in a cop car.
Yes, he is, and he's in cuffs. He's in the back of the squad car. The Reverend is talking to the sheriff outside, and Megan's husband, the deputy, is leaning on the car. And so they finish up their conversation. Sheriff walks up and says, "You're free to go," to Kyle. And the deputy, who is Roy or Ron, he just looks fucking shocked. And he's like, "Are you kidding me? Like, just because you're friends with the Reverend?" And then Sheriff's like, and that guy's got the coolest voice. He's like, "The mother refused to press charges, so let's wrap this up."
Hey, that was perfect.
Yeah, thanks, man. And the deputy just can't believe this fucking shit. He opens the door, uncuffs Kyle. He's like, "After everything Megan's done for you." And there, Kyle's got to be feeling like shit, but he does look over at the boy in this moment who's being tended to by the paramedics, and the boy does actually give him a smile. Like, he did save this boy in the fight for his soul.
Yeah, or that kid's like a really committed actor and eventually decided that it wasn't worth skipping school.
Okay, how would you explain the black tar vomit?
Huh? Oh, it's just, I don't know, it's what...
Cheap tricks. Oh,
yeah, cheap tricks.
Melted bubble gum in a microwave.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just that everything's being seen from Kyle's point of view, and he's fucking crazy. He's sick in the head, not the pain.
Oh, shit.
Right? Anyway, Reverend drives him home. Reverend is just spellbinded and shaking and astounded by what he's seen. And he wonders if Kyle kind of has his answers and confirmations, which Kyle doesn't immediately affirm, but he's also... You can't really deny what he's seen.
Yeah. Well, and the Reverend's like, "Man, I thought I'd seen the worst suffering a man could imagine, but I have never seen anything like that before."
And so now we get a very interesting flashback, because what we've been led to believe is that Kyle's been beating his daughter, and one would assume maybe it's because his daughter's possessed, but it's the opposite. It seems like Allison, his wife, is possessed, and he runs upstairs to save his girl. So it seems he took the blame. The daughter is beaten, and maybe he healed his wife through punching, and he just basically took the heat of being an abusive husband. Yeah,
the flashback starts because he says, like, "It seems like they've been coming after me my whole life," and the Reverend just drove off, and so yeah, it's him looking completely fucking normal as an adult, like somebody who has a job, a mortgage, just like
a razor.
A razor? Oh yeah, good point.
He's
yeah,
shaven.
Exactly. He's not looking nearly as disheveled. He looks bathed even, and yeah. So he comes in, from work or from wherever, dressed nicely in a nice house, and yeah, he hears all this commotion upstairs, and it's his wife who's on top of the daughter, probably doing the soul sucking thing, and he throws her off of the daughter, and she's just kind of like sitting all creepy like in the corner, and then she lunges at him, and so basically I guess that's how we find out that how that all happened. But so it snaps back to reality. He just kind of looks out at the night sky, and he just whispers like, "Come and get me," and then that's when the credits roll.
Yeah, pretty dope ending. And by the way, for those of you that wondered why Adam was confused by the razor remark, he actually loves and adores his razor scooter, so he always gets confused.
Yeah, that's what it is. Me, a 31-year-old overweight man, I love my razor scooter.
Right around the office, you tell me all the time.
More like my rascal scooter.
Oh man, you could even go see the Statue of Liberty in one of those, or the Grand Canyon.
Probably just Walmart.
Yeah. All right.
But so anyway, that is the end of this episode, and honestly, I was a little resistant when you were first trying to get me to watch this. I was. If you hadn't told me that I could just pull it up on YouTube, I don't know if we'd have even ended up settling on this show. But I'm glad that we did.
Just done nothing for a month.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where the season takes us. It seems like really interesting material, great writing, great characters and acting. So it'll be fun, and since we're a little bit behind on it, we'll be able to double up and really be able to push out some fresh content. Again, you can stay tuned for, what do we have? The Get Down, starting with Dan and Nathan. Most likely, we'll start seeing first episodes from that. What do you think, this weekend, perhaps early next week?
Yeah, you'll see him next week.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
And then as far as Mathis and I will continue putting out episodes of this, we'll be doing a Suicide Squad's review that should be up at the very beginning of next week as well. And
definitely doing Luke Cage in September as well.
Oh man, really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to pump out a bunch of episodes really quick when that comes out too.
Try to stay on top. It's interesting with the Get Down, by the way, too. August 12th is its premiere, but they're not doing all at once. They're just doing the first 6, which I thought was
really.
Yeah, they're splitting the season.
God damn, lucky Nathan and Dan, am I right?
I know, right? God. And everyone's a critic when it comes to time frame. It's like
yeah.
I should have watched 8 hours of Stranger Things and podcasted immediately after. But
yeah, like we have 16 hours to spend on it right out of the gates.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, thank you, honestly, for talking me into this show. It seems like it's going to be really intriguing. It looks like it's going to be definitely different and outside of my comfort zone, so I'm looking forward to it. And for the listeners out there, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit. Just look for us at Boob Tube Buddies. We'd love to field any questions, comments, and concerns about this show or any other upcoming ones that we're going to be doing, ones that we've already done. And please rate us on iTunes.
Awesome, yeah. And audibletrial.com/boobtubebuddies. Give Audible a shot and also help support us. Check out our links every episode in our description because we link to all kinds of goodies that are relevant to that week's episode. And I, too, am very excited to continue with the show. I really like the comic, as we mentioned earlier, but I've been very impressed with the show with this first episode. The dramatic prowess of it, the fact that they make it like genuinely creepy. All the acting's great. I've really been impressed with the score. Like, I can't wait to see the mythology that unfolds. But, ultimately it's about a show that a guy beats up people for Jesus, which I just think is great.
It seems like every single one of our shows, it's some character beating people up for some reason or another. I mean, Preacher's essentially beating people up under the guise of it being for God and for what's right, and then now we've got Kyle here beating people up in the name of Jesus, or at least anti-devil. And then we've got Sheriff beating up government agents. So,
yeah, beating up government agents that are covering up, basically a demon that's made its way to Earth.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. Yeah.
So, hey guys, stay tuned to Boob Tube Buddies, where we're going to continue to dissect religion for the modern man and woman and save this nation.
I can't wait until Luke Cage travels back in time and punches Judas in the face.
Oh God, he's gonna take that silver and put it into his bands, his metal bands.
I don't know what that reference is. I guess I don't know Luke Cage like you do.
Well, Luke Cage in the comics has 2 silver bands, almost like Wonder Woman, and a silver headband. In the trailer, he has them because he, breaks out of this tank. And then, obviously, Judas gave up Jesus for a few pieces of silver.
Oh, that was a pretty good tieback. I did not know that he gave Jesus up for silver. I thought he was just a dick.
No, he was a dick, always looking out for the bottom line. Capitalism.
Huh. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Well, anyway, yeah. I guess that pretty much wraps it up then.
All right, we'll see you next time, little buddies.